So my husband casually dropped the bomb that he wanted a temporary divorce. Why? To prove some twisted point about modern couples being too needy. I didn't argue, I didn't cry, I just signed the papers the very same day. And suddenly, his little experiment wasn't so fun anymore. It all started about 6 months ago, when Mark fell down the rabbit hole of those high-performance masculinity podcasts. You know the ones, men in dark rooms talking into $500 microphones about female psychology and how emotional detachment is the ultimate superpower. I thought it was just a phase, like his weird obsession with sourdough bread or crypto. I was wrong. One night, over a plate of cold pasta, he looks at me and says, "I think most people stay married out of fear, not love." I actually laughed. I thought he was setting up a joke, but he just kept staring at me with this blank, clinical look that made my skin crawl. After that, I wasn't his wife anymore. I was a case study. If I got annoyed because he forgot to take out the trash, he'd just nod and say, "Interesting emotional response." If I disagreed with him, he'd smirk and tell me I was proving his point. It was exhausting. I felt like I was being watched by a scientist instead of being loved by a partner. Then came the night that broke everything. We were on the couch, the TV was humming in the background, and I was folding his favorite gray hoodie. Out of nowhere, he says, "What if we got divorced for 6 months?" I stopped mid-fold. "What did you just say?" He sat up, looking all energized, like he'd been rehearsing this speech in the shower for weeks. "Not a real divorce, babe, just a social experiment. I think we've become too emotionally dependent. A little space would make us stronger. It's about regaining our individual power." I just sat there, staring at the laundry. Then he said the part that turned my heart into stone. "If we're really meant to be, we'll just naturally find our way back." Naturally. Like I was some stray cat that would just wander back to his porch when I got hungry. I didn't scream. I didn't even raise my voice. I just looked at him and asked, "You already talked to a lawyer, didn't you?" That tiny beat of silence before he nodded, that was it for me. This wasn't a spontaneous idea. He had planned this. He probably expected me to break down, to beg him to stay, to prove how dependent I was. Instead, I just took a breath and said, "Okay, let's do it." The look of pure confusion on his face was the best thing I'd seen in years. 3 days later, I signed. No drama, no long letters, no tears. I moved out while he was at the gym, and honestly, that's what wrecked him. The second I stopped being a subject in his experiment and became a ghost, it finally got real for him. 2 months go by. Then, at 1:14 a.m., my phone lights up. I think we made a mistake, followed by, "Can we please talk?" Turns out, living alone wasn't the intellectual paradise his podcast promised. No one was there to remind him to eat, no one cared about his day, and no one was providing that boring background love he'd taken for granted. He showed up at my new place last night, clutching a bag of Thai takeout, my favorite order, extra spicy. The alpha who lectured me on emotional detachment looked like he hadn't slept in a month. He looked pathetic. He asked if we could start over. I looked at him, really looked at him, and realized I didn't even recognize the man standing there. "You wanted to see what life looked like without me, Mark," I said, before slowly closing the door. "Now you know."